we're number one best places to work for companies 26 to 100 employees. Yeah, that's one I'm most proud of, our benefits packet. A couple years ago, I rolled out a bucket list and life fulfillment benefit that we help our people experience and fulfill something on their bucket list each and every year, whether that be cage diving with sharks or jumping out of a plane or taking their kids to Legoland. We help them identify through vision board exercises and bucket list creation workshops what's important to them, and then their managers help them with cash fulfill something. I think that when people spend the majority of their life working for your business, you need to be invested in their lives and help them live a fulfilled life. And in that spirit is probably why we end up on industry best place to work lists as well.
All right, everybody, and welcome back to another episode of the 1% Podcast. I'm your host, Vin End.
And I'm Shane.
And today we're joined by my man, Joe. Welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me, guys.
Of course, dude. We are excited for this one. Guys, gals, whoever's listening, we have a phenomenal action-packed episode for you today. Joe has built a behemoth of a global organization. He's going to get into the weeds about what it takes to really go from a small studio apartment in Manhattan, or maybe it wasn't a studio, I don't know. Joe, you'll clarify where you lived. But he's going to tell you what it goes from there to being a multi-million-dollar organization and a few of the pains in between. We're also going to get a little bit into his philosophies around entrepreneurship, company culture. And guys, we've talked about this on another podcast, but we're really going to get into the weeds today because this is foundational to Joe's core values as an entrepreneur and an owner of gifting, strategies of gifting, and how you can continue to connect with clients, people, and build those strong, steadfast relationships. And we're really going to talk about one thing that's near and dear to my heart is people. Joe's going to get into the weeds of what it takes to build one of the best workplaces in the world. So guys, this is a jam-packed episode. You're going to want to stick around for every freaking second because we're not missing a beat with Joe here. Joe, here we go. All right, Joe. So can you tell us a little bit about who you are, what you've built, and how you've been building it?
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks for having me, Vin, Shane. My name is Joseph Sommer. I'm the founder and CEO of Whitestone. We're an industry-leading, trend-forward brand merchandise agency with 77 full-time employees and entity in Europe, Canada, and the United States. We help awesome companies create awesome branded merchandise and build their brands with passion, purpose, and endless possibilities. I started the company in 2013 from my one-bedroom apartment in Manhattan. Have since scaled it over the last 12, 13 years. I now live in Austin, Texas, and I'm jazzed to be here and talk a little bit about failure, success, and what it's been like to scale a global agency.
How big have you scaled it now, right? You started off as a solo founder. Kind of like every founder story, right? Like I was living in a crummy little apartment by myself or in the basement, and now we scaled it to what? Like how big is your company at this current moment? You have 70 employees and what?
We just crossed over the $30 million mark.
Awesome, man. Congrats on that. And you said you're global. So do you have multiple offices? Do you supply globally? Like what does it mean to be global for you guys?
Yeah, we have employees in the UK, Canada, the US. We have entity in Europe through Ireland with 4 entity, Canada, US, Ireland, and the UK. We produce globally. We manage clients across the globe, primarily the United States, but we do help our enterprise clients with delivering and shipping into Europe and then the rest of the world. And then source globally. Yeah, we do a few $1 million in brokering business in China, but most of our supply chain is domestic in the United States.
I'm curious if that recently changed because of what's going on politically.
Nah.
Like, no? Okay, it wasn't cheaper to do it. It was just we want to bring it in-house.
Um, I think the demands of our customers are what took us global.
Mhm.
You get to a point where in the branded merchandise world, when you're working with Fortune 500s, these are global companies with employees spread out across the world, that if you're not able to service them across the globe, you're only going to get their ad hoc business, so not the whole pie. And so, enabled to win master service agreements, enabled to have company stores and warehouse products overseas, you have to have people overseas as well to help service them. So it was just really part of our growth strategy to one day get there, and
Mhm.
we got there through acquisition last July, and are starting to build it out a little bit more.
I love the fact that you have this world domination plan. I want to kind of dive into it because when we wanted to put another office into the UK, we had to set up a corporation in Delaware and essentially transition. That's why I'm in Vegas too. And I'm sure that the reason why you're in Texas is for more tax savings, but maybe you just love it in Austin.
I
I
love it in Austin.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Austin is phenomenal out there. But I want to know why the UK, why Canada. I'm assuming you have a high demand of clients in there, but what's going on over there is crazy, right? I don't want to bring it back into the actual political side of it, but as far as their economic stature, like they're constantly going down. Are you not seeing that for like business wise for like apparel?
No, there's really nothing political that drives it, and
Oh,
really, I think um,
it's just good business.
it's good business,
Yeah,
especially when we're managing household name brand Fortune 500 companies and managing their swag at scale.
that's why.
Um,
Yeah,
yeah, being able to accept multiple currencies and to have people in those regions that can sell into those offices, it
yeah.
just makes sense. And we were fortunate that through acquisition, we were able to go into Canada, UK, and Ireland all at the same time.
Mm.
So now I have a selfish question. When my company first made 10 million, we saw stagnancy. We weren't able to grow. And that's, my team's aware of that too for like 2.5 years. And it was really tough for to find new ways, especially when your clientele base is already worldwide, to scale. So I'm curious, in the apparel game, what is your secret to growth? Have you experienced any sort of bottlenecks that you weren't able to overcome? And even if you were stuck, right, because you've been at this for 13 years, around that, um, how did you get over them?
Yeah, that's a great question. I think that mindset throughout the organization really helps with Whitestone, in my experience, incentivizing sales for what you want. We have had, it was at the $15 million mark. It took us 2 years to kind of go from 15 up to 20. And it changed for us with recalibrating the incentives for the sales team. Um, and I also think the organization too was going through some growing pains to adjust to our growth. We went from 8 to 12 to 15, and really in that growth trajectory, so much of the org needed to change. You
Yeah.
had people who weren't able to grow up with the org. You're starting to build out middle management. So I think in our case, it was a lot of building the right infrastructure while also recalibrating the sales team to focus on new markets and just also just new business development.
Yeah, I feel like evolving and adapting is constant. I mean, especially in today's day and age.
Absolutely.
Did you hire people, coaches, to help with that, or were you able to just figure this out yourself?
No, we've hired leadership coaches to work with my executive team. I'm an active member in YPO, EO. I drink that Kool-Aid. I try to go to as many
Yep.
events as possible.
Mhm.
Um, I think being a learner and a lifelong learner in business is
Preach it.
probably one of the best skill sets you could have, but you have to be also able to implement, and you have to spread that philosophy across your team. If you go to a conference and you get a golden nugget, it's not valuable unless you're able to deploy that knowledge across the entire organization. And I think what we've done a really good job of is keeping people who have been with the company for a long time. So they've seen the growth, they've been bought into the growth, and they've grown with the company, and they've seen that without a growth mindset for themselves too, um, adapt or die, and so
Right.
some people have not worked out because of that. But when I look across the board at my management team and my directors and executives, they've been here for years, and they're cut from that cloth of lifelong learner.
Yeah, it's crazy. I feel like I've come up with an actual term, the humility shark, which is, keeping it humble, especially for you and your team, but still having the hustle mentality and the constantly look to get better and better, compared to being this egotistical narcissist saying, I got to hear this is how good I am. Nobody can teach me. And that's essentially what I wanted to hear. Like, it's so nice and refreshing to say that, a person of your stature is still constantly going to events, constantly going to dinners, constantly shaking hands, constantly looking to grow yourself and possibly your business. Um, I think that's phenomenal.
I think there's something to be said as well, because one thing that I like that you mentioned is those growing pains that you guys experienced. I found that a lot of the times when companies are growing, especially if they're growing pretty fast, is that they're focusing more on how do I just continue to scale? And they're not really optimizing people's positions. They're not even optimizing the people in the positions. And so everything's just breaking as they grow. And I'm curious, I mean, that experience, you said obviously there were some people not ready to grow with the company. There were things that were happening, a lot of transitions. What do you feel was the thing that really stabilized through that process for you, so that you can get the company in alignment and back to this cohesive, rallied state?
Culture and communication are key. You have to paint the vision and get people bought in on where you're going, and you need to communicate how you're going to get there. And certainly that failure is part of the process, and that growing pains are what come with growth, and sharing very openly that you don't know how we're going to get there. It might not work, but we're going to try, we're going to learn, and we're in it together. And I think, we've already talked a little bit about like this idea that to get from A to B, you're going to have to evolve and change. That is the same with growth. That like growth is not linear. It's up and down, and
Mm.
we share graphs. We show visuals of like, where we're at right now at 30 million. We've been very open to the team that we are in what's called the valley of death to get to 50. Cash is tight. Things need to be broken and rebuilt again. These are things you just have to communicate at the executive level, and down to the associates, and hopefully culture can keep people motivated and incentivized to still come to work every day, that you're at a place where you're valued, your work is contributing to the outcomes at the end of the day, that you're being valued and appreciated by management, and ultimately that you're doing things that are fun and fulfilling for you. So I think that's been part of it. And then too, you have to take care of your customers, and you have to prioritize good habits with everything that's happening to drive revenue. And you can't forget, why you're in business too. At the end of the day, we often talk about like we're a sales org. We never want the pendulum to shift so far away from sales, because ultimately then you're losing sight of how you're doing what you're doing and why you're successful to begin with. But it's underpinned with culture at the end of the day.
Hmm. I'm curious too, because there was a quote that you said, and it was I really liked it. So I'd love for you to just dive a little bit deeper, or more so, I think that you've already kind of elaborated on it, but I would love to even just hear where this mindset came from. You said that entrepreneurship to me is beautiful. It's a creative outlet to show the world what you believe, and what you can create through hard work, collaboration, and your own values for how you approach customer service, sales, business operations, and finances. Where did you start developing that mindset from? Why did you become this That's a very powerful statement. So I'll just say it. Where did you become a powerful visionary from? Like, how did you start coming into these conclusions?
Um, well, thank you for pulling up that quote. I think that's the most beautiful thing about entrepreneurship is without you, the logo wouldn't be there, the brand wouldn't be there. And it's your opportunity to show the world through your company what you value and ultimately what good you can do in the world with your business and for the people that work for you and serve. I think that entrepreneurship, first and foremost, you have a responsibility to your people to ensure that they can put food on their table, that they can send their kids to college, that they can buy a home. And I think that's a responsibility that every entrepreneur needs to um, be incredibly mindful of. And I've had entrepreneurs tell me, Joe, I drove up to work one day and I saw 12 cars in the parking lot, and I saw in my head that I was paying for all those cars, and I didn't want that responsibility anymore. And I think you have to take that responsibility. And if you don't own that responsibility, um, I don't think you're going to make a good entrepreneur, because ultimately, at the end of the day, your people, I think, are the most important thing, because they're the ones who take care of your customers, and without them, you don't really have a business. So it's your values that hopefully will trickle down to the people that you serve, and hopefully through what you create in your business, you can be a force for good, not only in your community but for the world and your industry.
I love that.
I want to bring it back to the business.
Boring ass shit.
So I mean, it's really the times here, right? So I want to see how adapting and how evolving, this company is. I have a good friend, Austin Boyd, who we previously had in the podcast, and he's got, one of the biggest apparel companies in Las Vegas that does this too. And we were kind of talking at a more intimate level. And I asked him, are you creating your own brand? And if so, not just for other people, your own brand, your own design of shoe, your own design of shirt, hoodies, sweaters, whatever the case may be. If so, how are you doing this? Because statistics, 60% of China is buying on their phones. They're live auction selling right here on their phones. This is how it's transitioning. Live auction selling through the United States is huge right now.
Yeah.
It's TikTok, it's Drip, it's Whatnot, it's 4 other platforms. Amazon is adopting an auction live house literally Q1 of 2026. That's huge. Now, what do you do with someone like a powerhouse like Amazon? You hire influencers that have a know, like, and trust factor, that are selling things that you love the influencer and like, oh, let me buy. So the question is, with how the world is transitioning and turning, and you providing a service to your customers, are you also doing the same thing for yourself? And are you eventually going to be transitioning into this model?
No. And the reason being is I think what you were describing is so much D2C. Auction selling, that's the consumer wanting to buy a t-shirt or a Birkin knockoff from a Chinese seller that they're seeing on their feed. Our clients are buying 30,000 shirts in one pop.
Right.
We are investing in technology to help our customers have better e-com experiences for their brands. But we're, at the end of the day, a B2B company. And I like to say we're an H to H company. We're human to human. I think the psychology of our buyers is really important to think about, in that if our client is spending $50,000 in brand merchandise, water bottles, hoodies, journals, backpacks for their leadership retreat or their largest trade show or conference, whatever it may be, their reputation is what they care about more than anything. They don't want to be made to look like the office idiot who ordered, a crap hoodie or a misprinted journal. And most of our industry is still, the goods are still being purchased through traditional B2B type sales rather than online e-commerce, where the buyer will go and spend, $10,000 on 500 hoodies or 500 notebooks. It's tied to that psychology that they don't want to open the box, having not talked to a human and it be wrong, it'd be messed up.
So go ahead, Shane. I see you're formulating something.
I think human to human labeling it is phenomenal. I think that's going to stand true to the end of time, regardless if robotics and AI come into place. I think more than ever, what your previous statement was is going to these networking events and shaking hands. That's going to be more valuable than ever, especially with, human society spending about 68% of their time on their phones, which is astronomical to me and crazy that it's not spent with their family, friends, their Bible, or whatever case they be. It's more on their phones. But I think the H2H is a great. I think customer service and quality speak true than ever. So I'm just hopeful that, to be honest, if we're going to B2B, literally the live auction sales is only to a B2C consumer. And even if it was a high quality item, it wouldn't even justify what you're currently doing, right? I think the bigger picture would be how would you be able to do that high volume sales to these actual streamers, which I know a few of them personally that buy hundreds of thousands of hoodies and shoes of high quality stuff. So it may be an untapped market that you may want to go into.
It totally is. I think that is ultimately the most beautiful thing, but also the biggest curse in my industry is the ability to sell 1 million products to millions of different consumers.
Right.
That got me tripped up early on when I started in my career, was being all things to everyone. I think what's made us successful now is identifying the 10 industries that we sell into very well. We have a lot of experience with, and we go deep with. And influencers, professional athletes, professional sports teams and colleges and universities are 4 industries that we have passed on historically and really do not care to sell into.
So I actually have a referral for you, but I'm going to mention this publicly because I know you guys would bond really well. He's actually a coach of mine too, because I'm starting a side business of this, but I don't want to get into this on this podcast. But his name is Alex, and he did an actual resale business of Nikes, grew it to 15 million over 4 years of ARR, and eventually sold it. What he did then is created his own product, his own shoe line, his own apparel, his own streetwear, own hoodies, and grabbed all his entire audience of millions and millions and millions of followers and resold him his own product.
Yeah, that's genius. That's brilliant. I mean, I think that's where you're seeing that with celebrities now using their likeness to create the next tequila company, right? Why go and be a show pony for a tequila company like Don Julio when you could just create your own and market it to your millions of followers? And it sounds like he had a lot of success doing that. I'd love to be connected with him and learn from him. And
that might be your valley of death, your creative nugget. I'm not saying it is, but it may be worth some time to explore on, how that might be valuable. Or regardless, having a powerhouse of resellers who are buying in gigantic bulk of what you were just talking about and selling it that way too.
Could be.
Sorry, go ahead, Vin. That's how I get excited about these kind of things too. So
listen, it's all good. We all love Alex. Alex was on the podcast. Alex is a good friend of mine. Anytime we could shout out Alex, I approve. He also sent me his shoes. I absolutely love them. So
do you have them with you? The Culture Kicks?
Well, I have them downstairs. I'm upstairs in my office.
Shout out Culture Kicks. Shout out Alex Lotier.
That's it. Who else we want to shout out? God, are you listening? Shout out to God. So, oh man, you know what though? I really love what Joe's talking about because Joe, see, I'm going to keep pulling it away a little bit, but I fundamentally believe that all business does come back to human. And Joe, you actually, there's a very creative story that I read about you about how you've signified or created symbols for clients who transition jobs. I don't want to give it away. I'd actually love for you to talk about that because I think the art of what you've done is something that's very lost, but the people that understand it will always be successful. Can you tell the listeners a little bit about what that story is?
The butterflies, right?
Yes,
it's
sir.
funny. I have a butterfly framed right here. And this is what we send. It's this butterfly. And here, actually, this is a candle we send too. It's Spark Possibilities candles. We practice what we preach. We send gifts all the time to first order clients, or in this case, the butterflies carryover clients, people who have relationships with us and purchase with us from one company. When they leave and they go and take a job at a similar company or in a different industry, we send them a beautiful acrylic framed butterfly. And the message is simple. It's thank you so much for your business while you were with XYZ company. And we just want to wish you nothing but continued success in your new role. Butterflies signify transformation and new beginnings. And we just know you're going to crush it. So, be well. Thank you. We don't mention Whitestone. We don't brand it. It's just goodwill. And then, carryover clients are a target that we track. And we see those people come back very frequently.
And that's generated another couple. Dude. You're welcome. And that's generated another
writing stuff down from notes too. I'm like, oh man, I read giftology, and that kind of like re-sparked some giftology.
Yeah, John Runland, rest in peace.
Rest in peace, man.
Yeah. I really I love what John has taught the entrepreneur community, which is to be a gift givers.
Yeah.
Where I disagree with John is in the idea that you need to put whoever you're sending a gift to's name on it.
Customized.
I also disagree with the idea that you need to stalk their whole network and gift the daughter, the assistant, the mother.
The overflow.
I don't really buy into that. Mm-hmm. But I do think that, especially in agency or B2B or service businesses, having a strong gifting approach is paramount.
Yeah.
And this campaign, I mean, not necessarily a campaign, but this gifting strategy, and I'm a full believer in that. The gifting strategy that you've done, though, you said you do track it. How much, if you had to guesstimate collectively, did that bring in for you guys just through this offer of generosity without even trying to have some form of reciprocity?
We look at it annually, like carryover clients as a tag. It's probably 10% of our revenue comes from carryover clients.
Phenomenal. Just because you show you cared about the people you built a relationship with. That's so.
Most of these people too had already been given gifts from either holiday gifts or new customer appreciation gifts. It's actually part of how we grew the business was a metric I asked all our salespeople every single week was to create 2 spec samples. And it was part of our weekly sales kickoff for years. We stopped tracking it and talking about it publicly in our weekly sales kickoffs because we have 35, 40 salespeople now. But it was 2 spec samples a week just because. And a spec sample in our world is like printing a logo on a water bottle and sending it to the client, or printing a logo on an umbrella and sending it to the client. So if a client, say, wanted or expressed interest in a tote bag and an umbrella for an event or a project, and they went with the umbrella, the salesperson would be trained to create a spec sample of that tote bag that they were expressed interest in, and send it just because. So each salesperson would do 2 spec samples a week, and in the meeting they would share who they made them for and who they're making them for this week. And that's pretty baked into the culture now, and it's talked about on one-on-ones between leadership and sales professionals, just less publicly on our weekly calls.
See, and I love that, because what you do is you do constant touch points with your clients, right? It's not like I only remember you when you place an order. It's I'm always thinking about you and you're always keeping them in mind. But you know what? I'll even say, I think that maybe you don't give enough credit to the fact that that third gift you give, the transition gift, is probably the biggest one, because I'm going to guarantee you that out of everybody that those people did business with, nobody cares anymore. It's like, oh, you're not in the company, I don't need you anymore. No gift for you. You were only getting gifts when you mattered to me. Yeah, you said, I wish you the best in your next endeavor. I remember you. Good luck. And they're like, oh, I'll keep remembering you too. You're coming with me.
That's the goal. And it's actually, what you just talked about, this idea that as a company, we're following up, we're sending gifts. When I got out of sales, that was my biggest insecurity, was that our sales professionals would not honor the touch system as relentlessly as I
Mm,
would when I was grinding and building the business. And insecurity is I kind of work against that by how we incentivize and what we build into the culture to prevent against that. So it's become a strength.
it's interesting too. Can I ask one more question about this? Because I feel like the biggest hesitation most people have is the upfront costs. They're afraid of gift giving because they don't know if it'll generate an ROI. They look at it eats their margins, their bottom lines. Um, could you guesstimate or maybe throw out a stat that could show like, hey guys, it's not as scary as it feels, or just even what was the experience before you really got comfortable knowing like, oh, this actually works. Like, I don't need to be afraid of spending a few dollars on building those relationships. Like, what was that like for you, and how can our listeners potentially understand and utilize this differently too?
That's such a great question, and I'm gonna answer it one way and then come back to it. I
Sure.
think that most entrepreneurs give up far too easily. I think they give up with new business development initiatives, with sticking to a marketing plan that they laid out. I think if they don't see results, um, in the first week, 2 weeks, month, they give up. And when I think about a gift strategy or anything you put in the business, you need to have a long term view that the goodwill of your campaign and gifting, or um, sticking with a business development professional to
Mm,
go out and make calls and send emails, that they're not going to yield results right away. And it's traditional in sales, right? You always talk about hunting and farming. And when you plant a seed, you need to water it. It grows a little, it sprouts. Like,
mm-hmm.
you're not going to reap the benefit of that for months. And I think with anything you do in business, you need to have the long term view, the long term view in a plan, the long term view in an employee. And certainly with gift giving, for some, if they don't have the dashboard or the tech to track, they might not look at the data. But the data shows, at least in our business, when we do track, and we do track, that gifting campaigns work again and again and again. Um,
I'd like
Would
to
you
pick you
say,
up.
do you have like a metric of the number for like every dollar spent on gift giving, you make 20, or is that too deep?
No, that's too granular. I don't have that. Um, I look at two numbers. I look at top line and profit, and if those two are growing, I don't really look at like campaign specific initiatives. Like, I
Mm,
know I spent over 120,000 last year on gifts, and those gifts are also spec samples. I don't look at like, does that 120 and the sending the one butterfly yield X. It's more,
right.
you know, are we as a business growing? And then are my sales professionals who are, in the weeds, are they growing each and every year? Are they hitting their goals? And are their clients growing too? So um, I don't get kind of lost in the minutia of it.
I'd like to pick you up that on what not to do, because I am living proof of what not to do. Shout out to Goody. We had the CEO of Goody on here, and back about 4 or 5 months ago, we spent about $20,000 on existing campaigns, existing clients, and we essentially put budgets based on how many virtual assistants, how big of a client they actually were. We put sizable budgets of gifts that we wanted to give these actual clients for just spur of the moments, right? We didn't want to put it for Christmas and Thanksgiving, whatever it was, yearly anniversaries, just thank you so much
Surprise
for your
and
business,
delight.
which was phenomenal. But here's what we did wrong. We sent them a gift of here's $500 of a website that you can choose whatever it is that you want. It was just like, oh, thanks. So they actually got to go pick their own gift, and then it was just a quick email saying thanks. Then don't do that, right? Because it's almost like they almost had like the minds of what do they want? What are they looking for something like this?
If only you had
Then
somebody you could have asked about that first.
Well, that's what Goody was all set up for, right? Is you send them there, and you were there, and you said, "I love Goody," so yeah, shout out to not you. Anyways, Goody is great for custom things that you can purchase whatever it is you look for. Now, here's what Joseph and I wanted to get towards this. I sent them custom made knives. Everybody loses it. It's universal. It's always in the kitchen. It had their name on it with a nice quote on there. And every time that they utilize this amazing, great quality knife, they could be reminded of the gift with a nice, fun quote with their name on it. It's in the household. They can hopefully bring it up for Christmas, whatever it is, and be reminded constantly of the VA group. I got a client to double their virtual assistant size from 12 to 25 virtual assistants just based on that gift. And there's other smaller ones, smaller little wins along the way. But just because of that gift, I was able to do that. They loved it. Spur of the moment, was able to get the dresses. And now we follow those lines for continual clients and brand new clients. Actually, I needed to start doing the brand new gifts for first clients because usually we wait about 90 to 180 days to send them out. I think sending them right off the bat is an amazing idea. And then clients that leave you, oh my God, why didn't I think of that? Like, I would love to send them a gift like, I wish you well. That's it. Like, thank you so much for everything. I wish you well in your journey. That's a phenomenal idea. Okay. I love what you're doing on Joseph. I want to bring it back now. So I'm trying to mentally understand this. You have warehouses, I presume, Canada, UK, USA, other parts of Europe, and you have ties with China. Tariffs are not a big deal. So I'm presuming that's why you actually have these different locations, these different warehouse locations. But predominantly, everything is set up in the United States. So I'm assuming you have a bigger warehouse that's actually in the United States that's still sending out to these other countries. Why? I must be misunderstanding.
Totally. We don't warehouse any product
Oh,
except if the customer has a enterprise program with us. Our
okay.
business is drop ship at bulk. So if, for example, a client wants 100 water bottles, we go to a supplier that warehouses and inventories water bottles, and we take it
Brilliant.
off the shelf, decorate it, send it out. We never touch the
Yeah,
product, and we only warehouse when the customer wants to set up a programmatic opportunity. That could be an e-com store or annual service recognition gifts. But we, for the most part, are brokers, middlemen, and don't warehouse an inventory. And the global is really just
the sales team.
sales team,
Yeah,
and my entire company is fully remote. So
right.
um, I have staff in
Makes more
19 states.
sense.
Yeah,
Yeah. That's how we avoid the tariffs. That's how we avoid the warehouse fees. Okay. Brilliant. Yeah. Which makes complete sense. You're interested in this? Great. It's going to take this time. We drop ship what exactly you're interested in. That makes complete
100%.
sense.
And if you're like, I have a week, okay, you have this option. If you have a month, okay, you have these options.
Hmm.
If your budget is, $10, like, or $20, like there's millions of products that we could sell.
Right.
Um, that's kind of the biggest opportunity and the biggest curse. What you sell into who.
So then clearly you are the 1% of drop shipping when it comes to strictly B2B for apparel. What advice would you give to somebody coming into it 2025 looking to start into this?
Uh, Keep it simple, stupid. Riches are in the niches. Don't be all things to everyone, and hire your weakness.
Mm. What is your weakness?
Ooh.
Uh, Operations. I'm a visionary. I can start it, rally the troops, but I don't want to be managing it, following up, or going through the minutia.
Mm.
Me and Joe are the same. Yep. I
I'm the
get
complete
I get your pain.
opposite.
Yeah, it's easy. I don't want it.
Oh
Yeah.
man. All right, Joe. Now I got a question for you since you said that. I have struggled to find my ops guy. How'd you do it?
I was so fortunate to have hired one of my best friends. I didn't hire her right
Oh.
away. She has been with me. It'll be 10 years in January. I promoted her to president of the company in March, and she's been my number two for the last 10 years. Her name's Dominique. Um, Now I have a VP of ops, but he focuses on strategic ops and tech. But Dominique for years was my, while she sold too, was my operations. Um, just by happenstance, we were at a friend's party when we met. We left, and we found out that we lived in the same building on the same floor in Manhattan.
Wow, what
And
are the odds?
truly,
Yeah.
of all the gin joints in all the world, right? Uh, that's how we became friends. And then I hired her, and she's I wouldn't be where I am today without her.
Mm.
You hear that, Shane?
The
Shout
best
out to Dominique.
Yeah, shout out to Dominique.
You hear
I
that?
don't have the best advice on how to find that person because she and I serendipitously met.
Listen, I don't disagree with you. I think hiring your best friend to help you grow your business is the greatest idea ever, Shane. Just saying. So I'm a big fan. I do have another cool, quick question for you, though, because you are one of the few people that we've had on here that has had such an exciting milestone. That one of your accolades is that you've been on the Inc. 5000 list for 6 consecutive years. How does one even do that?
I don't know.
It's like they just found me.
Yeah. At first, I remember applying thinking it'd be just a notch on the belt, and my goal now is to get to 10 in a row and then call it a day. I think that in the company, you need to be growth oriented. People need to be bought into the idea that this company is here today, but it will be there tomorrow. And as an organization, you have to create that culture and be willing to experiment and try new things. And um, I think we've just been fortunate that we've had a great team. We've had incredible clients. We've made some risks and they've paid off. Um, so that's led us to be on the list that many times.
Okay, one more list that you're on. Ranked number 1 best place to work. That's a pretty impressive title.
Yeah, that's one I'm most proud of, for sure. In our industry, we're number 1 best places to work for companies 26 to 100 employees. And I think one thing I'm really proud of our benefits packet, but a couple years ago, I rolled out a bucket list and life fulfillment benefit that we help our people experience and fulfill something on their bucket list each and every year, whether that be cage diving with sharks or jumping out of a plane or taking their kids to Legoland. We help them identify through vision board exercises and bucket list creation workshops what's important to them, and then their managers help them with cash fulfill something. And on top of the bucket list um, funds that are for the staff, we also give them an additional bucket list day off that um, they're able to use and do cool shit. I think that when people spend the majority of their life working for your business, you need to be invested in their lives and help them live a fulfilled life. And I think that shows up in our culture in a lot of ways. And that's one thing that I'm pretty proud of. And I think in that spirit is probably, why we end up on Inc. best places to work and industry best place to work lists as well.
So I
You
got
know,
a big question for you then. Go ahead, Ben, because mine's a question after yours.
yeah, I was just gonna add a cool little quip in there is that Joe, you're really changing the standard. I've heard it a million times that a salary is what a company will pay you to give up on your dreams. But instead, what they need to do is look at your company and they need to say a salary is what they'll give you on top of helping you experience your dreams.
Yeah, I hate that quote because ultimately, not everyone's born for entrepreneurship. And my parents didn't want me getting into entrepreneurship. And I
Same.
think that we, as employers, need to make sure our people are fulfilled and happy and living great lives. And a salary should provide for that, but also the benefits should help them. And your holistic approach on how you treat people should make them feel safe and secure to come to work every day.
I love you, man. I just want to give you a hug right now. Like, I don't even know what else to say. Next time you're in New York, I'm just going to hug you. We don't even have to hang out. I'll meet you at the airport. I'll hug you and you can go home. Like,
Yeah, Joe, I'm a big fan of you as well. I think, and this is like the Kool-Aid that I've been preaching, is to not be ever financially driven. If you can be success driven and focus inwards on your employees, they will break their back for you. They will never leave. I have a 96% Glassdoor rating as best boss, which is why I put up this here, because I believe in the same mantra and the same Kool-Aid is exactly what you do. Now, here's the thing. This is my question. You've been in this for 12 to 13 years, and this is a little bit difficult one. And I don't know. This really ate at me inside, and that's the troubles that I've been dealing with here. Your why, your purpose, and it's so hard to be all the things that I've seen, like my first house, my first car, like all these things I was able to do because of the company, which I'm sure you get all of the same. Now, here's the thing: is at a certain point, you either have to double down in the business or you have to see the light at the end of the tunnel, right? And it's so hard when you've gotten this number one ranking, when you've associated yourselves and your lie with your employees, which is it's tough. And I've talked to so many people that have been successful that sell their business, that go into drugs and alcohol because they've lost their purpose, they've lost their why. So my question is not, are you deciding to sell or double down your business? It's, what is your why?
That's such a great question, man. And I resonate with anyone who has substance abuse issues. I've been sober for 8 years. It was a New Year's resolution. I think a lot of entrepreneurs, tend to live the extreme in a lot of ways. And so, yeah, I resonate with that. My why is happiness, man. I don't want to do anything that doesn't make me happy. And hopefully what I create can be a force for good, which is I'm proud that we're a 1% for the planet company. We measure, track, and offset our carbon, and we try to really prioritize the planet in what we do. And I know that's hard for a swag company to think about because we create stuff, but we have a circular impact program that helps companies manage obsolete merchandise and hopefully responsibly recycle. But the why, man, it just all ties back to happiness. And I think that I don't consider myself as a entrepreneur that is looking for an exit. I think I'll have this business for many, many more years. It's why I promoted Dominique to president, because ultimately she needs to grow and evolve, and she's right for the role. And that forced me to step into a new role, which has been challenging for me. Getting out of the day to day and out of the weeds of leadership and allowing her to really manage and lead this very impressive and dynamic executive team and management team underneath. I think we all as people, we do what makes us happy. And that's my why, is to wake up every day, feel fulfilled, put a smile on my face with whatever I do. And hopefully, what the company creates allows the people who work at the business to experience that as well. Because we only get one shot at this earth and our time here, and we should be happy and fulfilled.
No notes. Well said.
I love it. Joe, it's depressing. We're almost out of time, but we got to ask you your final questions here, man. So I'm going to skip over the 1% question because I know what your 1% life is because you just said it. But one other question that we usually like to ask, and I'm always curious about, is what is the best piece of advice you've ever received?
Wow. That's such a damn good question. And I think that it's I don't have a good answer right off the top of my head. I think about like stages of where I've been at and how a golden nugget or a conversation has in that moment helped me. But I don't have any like philosophical advice that anyone gave me that really helped me. More so like things that have happened at certain stages of my life and in my journey that have resonated and that have applied at certain times. But probably just going back to happiness, that if you're not centered or happy with yourself, you can't ultimately help the people around you. So I think, I know people say this quite frequently, if you're a lifelong learner, people, you'll hear it, take care of yourself, your soul, because that's mission A, is making sure that you're aligned with who you are.
I love it, man. And let me ask you this question, because I'm hoping that at least somebody who heard how awesome this podcast is wants to. How can people get connected to you? How can they get in touch? What ways can they, get more involved in anything you're doing, or maybe even hit you up if they need a couple 50,000 shirts or so?
Yeah, I love that. Well, I am very easily reachable on LinkedIn and Instagram, Joseph Summer 89, and on LinkedIn, just Joseph Summer. And I love talking shop, meeting entrepreneurs. It's what fires me up and invigorates me. Hearing other people's stories, and everyone who I've ever met has helped play a part in my journey. So, meeting people is what I love to do, and hopefully people will reach out and I can create some awesome new connections from this.
I love it. Well, dude, thanks so much for coming on. What a blast of an episode it's been. Really looking forward to continuing to see how you build and what you build. And thanks again so much just for coming on today.
Thanks for having me, guys. I enjoyed this a lot.
Of course, man. Well, guys, there you have it. It's another episode of the 1% podcast in the books. Don't forget to like, share, follow, subscribe, comment. Let us know what you thought of today's episode. And we look forward to seeing you on the next one. I'm your host, Vin, and
I'm Shane.
And that was Joe. See you, everybody.